Hello. This is in response to a short comment by John Doe. Uh, was I considering seasteading as a means to a MGTOW utopia? Um, well, when I first came across it, yes, actually. Um, I had I I incorporated the idea, I guess you could say. It was the concept on its own seems to show a huge amount of promise. However, as I'm hoping that you may have garnered from the other videos, uh, the more I've thought about it, the more I've looked at its structure and the inherent dangers and problems with it. It's it's not exactly the easiest thing to do. It's immensely complex. I even with everything else, if you are a resident or a citizen of this city state, would you need to have a passport? If so, also, what about maritime laws and jurisdiction uh, and national waters? How far out away from the facility would the waters extend? 12 miles, 200 miles? These are all things that would actually have to be worked out. Now, as far as a MGTOW utopia, uh, one, it would most likely be far easier to set something up on land. Uh, but once again, that's that keeps us exposed to whatever system or political system that we're trying to escape in the first place. It gets a little complicated. Now, that being said, an organized group of people, and this is mainly where MGTOW comes in, even more so than the people that are just trying to go galt. A lot of the people that are trying to go galt tend to have backgrounds outside of the skilled trades. Typically, you're talking like financial workers, managers, and the like. MGTOW, on the other hand, is a bit more broad. Uh, we have people from all walks of life who have experience and expertise in essentially nearly every field of study or work. Now, this is where I think MGTOW is able to go and do this where others have failed. Uh, Aside from all the inherent complications, we have the cost. Um, we're talking costs in the tens of millions of dollars. Just to get a facility up and running that can accommodate up to 1,500 people. We're talking about $50 million. And that's just to build it. Uh, yeah, it's a lot of money. However, a dedicated group of people with a common cause and a common goal. This is actually fairly attainable. Uh, Once again, though, it still limits the number of people that are there, and that still emphasizes that everybody involved has to essentially be cross-trained on every function within the city-state. That's going to take some time. Uh, which is why I think that setting up a MGTOW community first, and doing as much of the cross training on land is far safer, and it can also prepare us for what is to come. Now, the original seasteading, as proposed by a number of groups, I actually posted up one of their projects on one of my videos, the Blue Seed project. This was to be set up offshore of San Francisco as a means to go and bypass some of the visa restrictions on engineers and developers. This was to be set up off the coast of San Francisco as a means to facilitate Silicon Valley. But in order to do that, they needed outside investment. Obviously, that didn't work. So that model isn't really going to work. You can't do it with the outside investment. It's got to be internal at first. Also, their concept was to test out numerous forms of government and linking up each individual seastead with computer programs and algorithms to be able to determine what works, what doesn't work, what works in what context, what works in another context, and run it through a program to try and create the best type of civilization that we can at the moment. I say that they failed because, well, they did. They weren't able to get all the financing because all the financing had to come from without. As a group working together, we could actually finance it from within. And one tool for that would actually be YouTube. But I don't exactly feel comfortable discussing it on this exact platform. And it would take a fair number of people. It really would. And that's just to get it started. Now, let's say if by some chance we were able to get it started, get the first facility built and up and running, in comes the other drawbacks. There's not enough people. We're going to need a minimum of 5 of these facilities essentially attached to make one city-state. Even with 5, we're going to want to go and downgrade the number of people that can live on each platform, probably down to about 1,000, 1,050 people. It allows for additional space for other people to come on, but more than that, it allows for lab space. We're also going, as part of this, not just building the thing, we're going to want to outfit it. So we're going to want to think about this and plan ahead for that as well. To be honest, I see this venture when it comes to seasteading as a possible means for a spacefaring society. I say that because, well, I guess you could say I'm an optimist, or I am a idealist. In that sense, I'm also a bit of a cynic. Yeah, I know, a weird combination. But if you watch my video on the many opinions in one topic, makes a little more sense. Um, anyways, whatever society or culture dominates space in the early eras of exploration and exploitation, then that is most likely to be the predominant culture of space. Like, if China, North Korea, or Iran, for example, were to set up asteroid mining facilities, space stations at Lagrangian points, essentially almost all trade would go through there. They would have the ability to mine the moon. Helium-3 is amongst other minerals that are actually pretty cool. But getting back on point, whatever culture is disseminated and spread throughout the solar system in this early stage is going to be the predominant culture within the area of space for the foreseeable future. So much so that even a number of people in Congress are trying to work around some of these issues. Like, if an American lands on an asteroid, then that asteroid is automatically under the jurisdiction of the United States government. Yeah, we can be 350 million miles away, but they're still wanting to impose jurisdiction. Yeah. I really don't see that working too well. And that's kind of where seasteading can come in handy. It can allow us to experiment on a small scale. And that's what most of these people were focusing on. But the funding had to come from without. That's not going to work. And as I said in the videos, it would almost have to be socialist for a number of reasons. One of which is predominant reason is safety. I know socialists and safety doesn't normally go hand in hand, but I'm referring to specifically in the context of emergency procedures. Everybody needs to be cross-trained on all of the vital systems within the city-state in case anything were to happen. Yeah, it sucks, but as a result of the inherent dangers of a city at sea, that's going to be necessary. I mentioned the commercial space programs, and we can produce the fuel out at sea so that our customers don't have to bring it with them. That drops down the cost. Since we would be essentially producing hydrogen and oxygen for free through use of our power generation process, then that is a huge influx of revenue. Now, these are all good points, but I gotta stress that I only see MGTOWs being able to blaze a trail for this. Reason being is because we are as diverse as we are. The reason being that the vast majority of MGTOWs have been engineers, plumbers, electricians, farmers, urban farmers. There's a lot of mechanical engineers, aerospace, physics, physicists, astrophysicists. There's a lot of potential for it. There really is. However, it would have to remain mobile. which is where the whole issue with international waters and uh, jurisdiction within those waters comes into play. It's not a very simple. It's not a simple problem. It's extremely complex. You'd have to be relegated to a specific area of the ocean. Well, okay, how are you going to enforce that? A utopia? No. It would essentially, it could also act as a refuge. Um, but like I said, we're going to need approximately a minimum of 5,000 people per city state, and that is still small. I mean, that is still small. Trying to convert a cruise liner, you run into the issue of size. The quarters are tiny and tight, uh, and if you want to try and start it up off of that type of structure, you're most likely going to need service personnel. So there are a number of issues that would have to be worked out. I mean, this is immensely complex. We all like to dream and wish, but when we start looking at some of these things, it gets, and we get more in depth, it gets more difficult. I do think that as any group on the planet, the herbivore men and MGTOWs the world over would essentially be the best choice to implement such a venture. And we can do that through internal self-funding. But that would have to be a different type of conversation. I would probably be a bit more comfortable doing over Skype. But thank you for your comment. It allowed me to actually go through a little bit of this. We would probably, like I said, we would probably have to start it off on land and work from there. Well, the problem with starting it on land is that you're still subject to the same type of social pressures and political pressures as you were to begin with. The only difference is your local social network or your it would be much more understanding. And a seastead would most likely be extremely beneficial, especially in the realm of technology. It would allow us to innovate at a rate unseen anywhere else on the planet, but once again, the rate of innovation is directly tied to population. So the more people, the better. The more people, the bigger the structure. The bigger the structure, the bigger the target. The bigger the target, the more robust your defenses would have to be. And as a result of the inherent dangers and the overall expense, certain things would essentially have to be free, like housing, food, water, power. To encourage people to come out. Once we have enough revenue, and we're talking like 20, 25 years down the road, from the time of the first facility getting up and running, it would take about 20, 25 years to finish the first city state. I mean, keep that in mind. We're not talking a short period of time here. It would almost have to be a multi-generational venture. However, would it benefit all of humanity? Yeah, I believe it could. The problems are, they are immense, but so is Mount Everest. And, well, Edmund Hillary climbed it, died on the way down. So, it's not impossible. I just don't see anyone else being able to do it other than MGTOWs. I just don't.